This one shift in identity will bend reality faster than you think. As Carl Jung once said, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens." Today, I want to invite you to look inside and recognize the single shift in identity that can transform your entire reality faster than you can imagine. It's not about forcing change. It's about aligning with who you truly are. Imagine what would happen if you stopped carrying the burden of your old self and boldly stepped into the life that was waiting for you. How would your relationships, opportunities, or even your happiness evolve? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's explore this journey together on the Spiritual Wisdom channel. 1. Your old self is a frequency, not just a memory. Your old self is not just a memory. It is a frequency that continues to echo through your body and mind. It lives in your nervous system. It shapes your emotional reactions, and it influences the small decisions you make every day. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This truth explains why the same cycles keep repeating themselves no matter how much you wish for change. That heaviness in your chest when you wake up, the inner voice that quietly tells you not to expect too much, the patterns you swore you would never repeat but found yourself living again. All of it is the energy of your old identity trying to keep you loyal. As long as you carry it, reality cannot shift, because the world outside of you is only mirroring the vibration you refuse to release within. Your old identity is not only mental, it is energetic. The body holds on to what the mind cannot always remember. Every wound, every fear, every unresolved story is stored in your chemistry, your heartbeat, and the rhythm of your nervous system. Each time you repeat the same thought or replay the same emotion, you are not only remembering the past, you are broadcasting it into the present. Reality, sensitive to frequency, tunes itself to that signal. And no matter how hard you think, visualize, or affirm, if your vibration remains tied to who you have been, your life will keep repeating itself. Spiritual wisdom teaches that transformation begins when you release the energetic addiction to the old self, not when you try to force new beliefs on top of it. Carl Jung's work shows us that the persona we cling to becomes both mask and prison. It is not enough to change thoughts while your energy still vibrates in fear or scarcity. The quantum field does not respond to words. It responds to vibration. As Albert Einstein reminded us, everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you cannot help but get that reality. If your identity is your frequency, then holding on to an outdated self is like playing the same song on repeat while expecting a new melody to appear. You cannot step into a new life carrying the soundtrack of your old one. The song must end before the silence can give birth to something new. This is why so many remain stuck in cycles of effort without change. They affirm what they do not believe. They visualize outcomes while secretly doubting. They force themselves to think positive while their nervous system still trembles with fear. The result is inner conflict, a mismatch of signals that keeps the old reality alive. The one true shift is not in adding more effort, but in letting go of the old vibration entirely. It means breaking your loyalty to the identity that feels familiar but keeps you small. It means recognizing that you cannot drag the past into the future and expect it to transform. Spiritual awakening is remembering that you are more than the stories you have repeated, that you are greater than the patterns that bound you, and that by choosing to detach from the old self, you step into the freedom of who you are becoming. When you release that old frequency, your entire system recalibrates. Your nervous system finds balance, your subconscious opens, and your energy begins to broadcast a new signal. Life responds with synchronicity. Opportunities appear. People show up. Reality bends, not because you forced it, but because you finally matched the frequency of the life you desired. This is not magic. It is alignment. It is the intelligence of spiritual wisdom at work. The moment you stop being loyal to who you were, you give yourself permission to meet who you truly are. And when that happens, reality shifts with a speed and clarity that feels almost miraculous, because the truth is, it was always waiting for you to let go. Comment below, "I release my old frequency," if you are ready to let go of your past identity and step into the reality that truly belongs to you. 2. The quantum field responds to identity, not effort. Reality is not crafted by the empty repetition of affirmations, nor by the countless vision boards scattered with desires, but by the coherence of your inner state. The quantum field mirrors not your words, but your being. For in the grand weave of existence, you do not manifest what you want. You manifest who you are. Every vibration you hold, every belief that shapes your identity, becomes the signal the universe responds to. And your life shifts only when you shift vibrationally. As Carl Jung reminded us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. That unconscious identity, living in your emotions and habits, is what truly bends reality. You may say the words, "I am abundant," but if beneath those words there still lingers fear, scarcity, and the hidden memory of lack, the quantum field will not be deceived. Words are only the surface. Energy is the truth. Your nervous system carries the frequency of your past. Your emotions broadcast your inner beliefs, and your chemistry repeats the patterns you swore you would leave behind. This is why so many people find themselves trapped in cycles. They chase new goals while embodying old wounds. The field listens not to what is said, but to what is consistently lived. To change the outer world, you must first change the invisible state that holds it in place. Coherence is the language of creation. If your identity is fractured, reality reflects the fracture. If your inner story is written in fear, reality presents the chapters of fear back to you. Yet when you begin to embody the frequency of the life you wish to experience, when you decide to step into the new identity with sincerity and constancy, the universe bends to meet you. This is the essence of spiritual awakening, not an abstract pursuit, but a transformation of self, a deliberate alignment of thought, feeling, and action with the reality you choose to live. You no longer beg for peace. You become peace. You no longer plead for love. You radiate love until life can do nothing but return it. Look closely at the world around you, and you will see this truth everywhere. The person who identifies as unlucky will overlook opportunities that appear daily, while the one who quietly embodies confidence and worth naturally attracts doors opening, hands reaching, paths unfolding. The difference is not luck, but identity. In spirituality, we learn that coherence creates magnetism, just as one tuning fork vibrates another into harmony. The quantum field reads this resonance with perfect accuracy and reflects it back without fail. The real question is never, how hard are you working? But rather, who are you while you work? Jung spoke of individuation, the process of integrating all aspects of the self into wholeness. And this is what the quantum field recognizes. You cannot live split between the self you pretend to be and the self you secretly believe you are. At some point, you must choose coherence over contradiction. This choice is not made once, but lived daily, in each thought aligned with your new self, in each decision that supports it, in each habit that reinforces it. Slowly, the old self dissolves and the new identity emerges, not as an illusion, but as your lived reality. The outer world is not chaos nor accident. It is a mirror of the coherence you cultivate within. Shift the identity, and you shift the reflection. The moment you step into the frequency of who you are becoming, the quantum field bends to your being. This is the wisdom at the heart of spirituality. You do not chase reality, you become it. Every day you are asked not, what do I want? But, who am I willing to be? And in that answer lies the power to bend reality itself. Leave your likes and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to activate the notification bell so you never miss insights like this. The quantum field responds to who you are, not just what you do. So type in the comments, I align my identity with abundance, to affirm your shift and inspire others on this journey. 3. Survival identity is the real block. Most people spend their lives hidden behind a mask that was built out of past pain, rejection, or failure. And although this mask was once a shield that kept them safe, it slowly became a prison that keeps them from growing. Carl Jung wisely said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." And this is exactly what happens when you live through your survival identity. That false self, born out of wounds you never asked for, runs your choices, your relationships, your dreams, and even your sense of worth. It becomes the autopilot of your life, keeping you stuck in cycles you swore you would never repeat, yet find yourself trapped in again and again. This version of you is not your essence. It is a shell. Beneath it lies the real you, the one who is whole, capable of love, expansion, and transformation, waiting to awaken through spirituality and deep spiritual development. The truth is that energy follows identity, and if you continue to see yourself as unworthy, broken, or small, your external world will always mirror that belief. You cannot manifest abundance while carrying the vibration of lack, just as you cannot step into love while clinging to the identity of rejection. In today's world, this shows up in so many ways, settling for jobs that drain your soul because you do not believe better opportunities exist. Holding on to relationships that dishonor your spirit because you fear being alone, or turning away from risks that could elevate you because failure feels more familiar than success. This survival self convinces you that it is protecting you, but in reality, it is keeping you from truly living. The moment you recognize this is the beginning of spiritual awakening, you start to see that the survival identity was never your destiny. It was only a temporary refuge for your wounded heart. When you finally ask yourself, who am I without my wounds? You begin to take back the power that you unknowingly surrendered. Spiritual development is not about denying your past, but transforming your relationship with it. so it no longer dictates your future. Jung's reminder: I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become, becomes a guiding light. Choosing to release the survival identity is choosing freedom over fear, expansion over contraction, and alignment over illusion. Your life is no longer defined by old scars, but reshaped by the truth of who you really are. The old story begins to fade, and a new reality emerges, one that bends to the vibration of your authentic self, a reality alive with purpose, creativity, and possibility. Each small act of choosing authenticity over fear is an act of creation. Each moment you step out of autopilot and into awareness, you shift your energy into alignment. This is the work of spirituality, not to escape reality, but to reshape it from within. You are not here merely to survive. You are here to awaken, to grow, and to create a life that reflects your soul rather than your scars. And when you finally release the mask of survival, you realize that the true self has been ready all along, waiting for you to embrace it, to rise with it, and to step into the expansive life that was always meant to be yours. 4. Emotions are the gatekeepers of reality. Emotions are the silent architects of your life, shaping every experience you encounter, not through logic, but through vibration. When regret, shame, and fear dominate your inner world, they become more than fleeting feelings. They turn into magnetic broadcasts, drawing to you circumstances that echo those very states. Carl Jung once observed, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." This truth reveals that when your emotions go unexamined, they quietly script the destiny you live out. If you seek love while carrying doubt and unworthiness, you will unconsciously block connection. If you dream of abundance, but dwell in the vibration of lack, no amount of effort will open the door, because your frequency is not aligned with prosperity. Change is always vibrational before it becomes intellectual. Intelligence may point you toward what you desire, but your emotions are the true gatekeepers of manifestation. They live in your nervous system, your subconscious, and in the micro decisions you make each day. When your emotional body is addicted to fear or shame, even your best thoughts are powerless to transform your life. The key is not to think harder, but to feel differently, to release the chemistry of the old self and embody the vibration of the new. Jung's spiritual wisdom teaches us that your identity is shaped less by what you think and more by the emotions you rehearse. The moment you release the cycle of emotional addiction, you shift from asking, "Do I deserve this?" to declaring, "I already embody this," and reality begins to bend in your favor. Emotions act like addictions because the body becomes chemically accustomed to them. Just as someone craves a substance, your nervous system can crave anxiety, shame, or fear, tricking you into recreating those feelings even when peace is available. This is why breaking free requires more than mental strength. It requires emotional intelligence and spiritual wisdom. As Aristotle wrote, "Educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all." You must educate the heart to hold new vibrations, gratitude in place of lack, compassion in place of shame, courage in place of fear. These small but consistent choices reset your inner frequency and invite a new outer reality to meet you. Your emotions are not enemies, but signals. They show you the vibration you are sending into the world and the reality you are unconsciously attracting. When you begin to notice the emotions that dominate your days, and intentionally practice the higher states of love, worthiness, and abundance, you are not only changing your mood, you are reshaping your destiny. Jung reminded us, who looks outside, dreams. Who looks inside, awakes. By awakening to the field of emotions within, you step into a new identity where intelligence and spiritual wisdom merge. And from that place, reality itself reshapes to mirror your transformation. Comment below. My emotions align with my reality. If you're ready to step into a new frequency and let your feelings open the door to abundance. 5. Observation shifts. Everything you are the observer. The moment you witness your old self without merging with it, you collapse its power, because observation itself becomes liberation. Carl Jung reminded us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. In quantum physics, the observer effect reveals that awareness creates reality. And when you observe your patterns from a place of higher intelligence and spiritual wisdom, you stop being the pattern and begin becoming the creator. Every repeated thought, every recycled emotion, every wound you have carried for years loses its grip the instant you shift into the role of the observer. For the one who sees is no longer bound by what is seen. To observe is to awaken. An awakening is to reclaim the authority that was always yours. It is like being inside a dream. Once you realize you are dreaming, the dream changes. The fear dissolves, the scenery bends, and suddenly you can choose to fly. Life works in the same way. When you awaken to the fact that you are not your wounds, not the voice of doubt, not the story of your past, you collapse the old identity and bend reality into a new form. This is the meeting point of spirituality and science, where the eternal soul recognizes its ability to create instead of repeat, to rise above the cycles that once defined it. Spiritual awakening is not about denying your patterns. It is about observing them so clearly that they no longer own you. In modern life, this shift becomes incredibly practical. At work, your old self might panic and whisper, "I can't handle this." But the observer pauses and simply notices the thought, creating the space for clarity and new solutions. In love, when an old wound is triggered, the old self reacts defensively, but the awakened observer sees the pain without becoming it, choosing instead to respond with compassion. This shift is not a distant ideal. It is a tool available in every breath, in every moment where you remember that your awareness is stronger than your automatic reaction. Observation is creation, because the quantum field responds to the signal of your awareness. When you remain unconscious, you broadcast the frequency of your old identity, and reality mirrors it back. But the instant you awaken into presence, you send a new vibration, and life reshapes itself around it. As Rumi said, try to accept the changing seasons of your soul, even when the winter feels endless, because spring is already waiting inside you. Do not fight your old self. Do not shame it, and do not lose yourself in it. Simply observe. The one who observes is free, and in that freedom, you reclaim your true role, not as the pattern that repeats, but as the creator who chooses. Stay connected with our spiritual wisdom community by subscribing to the channel. Here, we explore how shifting your identity and stepping into the role of the observer can transform your reality. Remember, you are not just a participant in life. You are the observer, capable of reshaping your world with awareness. 6. Identity shift is the foundation of true manifestation. You cannot access the timeline of your future self while still carrying the emotional weight and behavioral patterns of your past, because your past isn't just behind you, it lives in your nervous system, in your reactions, in the tone of your inner dialogue, and in the choices you keep repeating. The future version of you already exists, not as a distant dream, but as a frequency in the quantum field, vibrating with a different emotional tone, mindset, and posture. You don't have to chase that future. You must become it. This is the essence of spiritual development, aligning your current identity with the version of you who already lives that future. Spirituality is not about detachment from reality, but conscious embodiment of a more expanded one. Carl Jung said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That's exactly why the first step to transforming your outer world is transforming the self that is experiencing it. You shift by disrupting the loop, becoming aware of who you are being, and choosing, moment by moment, to respond as your future self would. Your thoughts create your emotional tone. Your emotions condition your biology, and your biology determines how you behave, and all of this becomes the vibration you send into the world. If that vibration matches your old self, rooted in fear, doubt, or hesitation, then reality reflects more of the same. But when you begin to condition your body to a new state, calm, confident, disciplined, then your external world rearranges to mirror that internal coherence. Identity is not a fixed trait. It's a practice state. Every time you sit up straighter, breathe deeper, respond instead of react, and think in alignment with the person you want to be, you are shifting into a new energetic frequency that collapses the gap between you and your future. This is not a fantasy. It is the science of intention meeting repetition. Your brain rewires based on repetition. Your emotions recalibrate based on your focus. Your behaviors, when made consistently, become traits, and those traits become your lived character. This is how real transformation happens, subtle but powerful. Don't wait for a new outcome to validate your new self. Be the new self now, and the outcomes will begin to orbit around your alignment. Choose spiritual wisdom over emotional reflex. Create rituals that anchor you. Start your day with breath, with clarity, with purpose. Walk through your life as someone who knows they are enough, who acts with dignity even when no one is watching. Speak with intentional words. Move with grace. Say no when your energy says no, and say yes only when your soul says yes. Surround yourself with people who reflect your growth, not your wounds. Remember, transformation isn't a thunderclap. It's a series of micro choices done consistently, day by day, hour by hour. Don't seek proof, seek alignment. And when you slip, don't shame yourself. Return to center and begin again. That's the path of real identity shift. That's how you bend reality, not through effort, but through becoming. 7. Ritual and embodiment anchor the shift. Transformational change is not a single moment of decision. It's a sacred discipline, a devotion to who you are becoming. You don't shift your identity by thinking differently for one day. You shift by showing up daily with intention. Carl Jung said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." And this is the essence of true transformation. It happens through the micro choices you make when no one is watching. when you choose to visualize who you are meant to be, when you speak truth over your life even before it shows up in your reality, when you emotionally embody a new frequency even while traces of the old still linger, saying, I no longer collapse the past. I tune into who I truly am, is not just a powerful declaration. It is a command to your nervous system, your subconscious, and the field of reality to reorganize itself around a higher truth. It's a daily signal to the quantum universe that you're ready to release the identity built in survival and step into the one anchored in spiritual intelligence. Your past is not just a memory, it's a vibration. It lives in your chemistry, in your reactions, in the way you carry your body and respond to uncertainty. But here's the hidden wisdom. Just as trauma can be encoded, healing can be embodied. Ritual becomes the bridge between who you were and who you are becoming. Embodiment becomes the proof that your spiritual awakening is real. The body, the breath, the voice are all instruments of your soul's remembering. When you practice becoming the new self over and over again, you collapse the energetic imprint of the old self. And the universe, intelligent as it is, responds not to your desire, but to your signal. You are not asking the world to shift for you. You are becoming the version of you who already lives in the world you desire. This is why intelligence isn't enough. You can study manifestation, read Jung, and understand all the theories of psychology and energy. But if you don't live the frequency, if you don't feel it, speak it, walk it, you'll always remain on the edge of transformation, close enough to see it, but too far to live it. The quantum field does not respond to wishful thinking. It responds to coherence between your inner truth and your outer expression. You become magnetic when your vibration is consistent, when your inner declarations match your outer embodiment. Every time you choose peace instead of panic, purpose instead of passivity, faith instead of fear, you are rewiring your reality and making it impossible for the old version of you to survive. You're not just changing your life, you're changing your identity. And once you do that, the world around you has no choice but to mirror the shift. 8. The field bends when you do. The field bends when you do, not because of wishful thinking, but because reality is attuned to the frequency you carry within. When you shift your inner posture, the world around you responds, rearranging itself in ways that might feel mysterious, yet are rooted in resonance. You don't drag the future toward you like a heavy weight. You grow into the version of yourself that belongs to that future. And by doing so, you step naturally into a new path. The vibration you hold your emotions, your beliefs, the stories you repeat to yourself sets the tone of your reality. And when that tone changes, life itself begins to rearrange. Suddenly, synchronicities increase, resistance dissolves, and doors you once thought were locked quietly swing open. This is not magic in the sense of illusion. It is the natural consequence of resonance, like a tuning fork vibrating in harmony with another. Your inner life is like a transmitter, broadcasting a signal into the field of possibilities. When you tune to a new frequency, the static of the past fades and a new song plays. In daily life, this begins with micro habits. How you speak to yourself when old doubts rise. How you breathe when fear tightens your chest. How you choose your words when describing your future. Each of these small acts rewires the nervous system, and over time they change your baseline state. Instead of reacting from old wounds, you begin to act from alignment. Carl Jung spoke of transformation as a meeting with the unconscious. You do not destroy your shadow, but integrate it, and integration alters your energetic signature. Spirituality, at its essence, is not about escaping this world, but about awakening within it, realizing that identity is fluid, that you are not trapped by the past, but are capable of creating from the present moment. To apply this in modern life, consider the areas where you feel most stuck. Perhaps it is in your work, where patterns of self-doubt make you settle for less, or in relationships, where old fears keep you repeating the same dynamics. Begin by changing the small responses. Say no where you once said yes out of fear. Breathe deeply before you speak words of anger. Declare truths about who you are becoming until your body begins to believe them. Over weeks and months, these micro shifts compound, and the field around you adjusts. Opportunities align with your new tone. People treat you as the person you are becoming, and resistance fades because you are no longer feeding it with old energy. This is usable spirituality, not lofty ideals removed from daily life, but practical inner engineering that produces visible results. Spiritual awakening happens here when you choose new rituals, new thoughts, and new emotional responses that elevate your vibration. It is not about perfection, it is about consistency. The field bends when you do, and the evidence appears in real, measurable ways. The right conversation arrives at the right time. The job opens up when you are ready. The relationship blossoms because you have shifted within. The question is not whether reality will respond. It always does. The question is whether you are willing to make the small but steady changes that invite life to mirror the person you are becoming. And that's where we'll leave it for today. Remember, this one shift in identity can transform not only how you see yourself, but how reality itself bends around you. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself like this video. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom. Make sure to turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos filled with insights that guide your spiritual awakening and growth. Until next time, keep walking boldly into the life that is waiting for you. Your ex tried to break you, but now the universe is delivering justice. Your vision will become clear only when you look into your heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. Carl Jung. Sometimes, the most painful betrayals carry the deepest spiritual lessons. If you've ever felt like your ex tried to break you, know this. The universe is not blind. It watches, it balances, and eventually, it delivers justice. In today's video, we dive into Carl Jung's chilling insight on how karmic retribution unfolds not just as punishment, but as awakening. As you watch, ask yourself, have you ever witnessed divine justice unfold in your own life? Share your story in the comments below. Your healing could be someone else's revelation. Let's grow together here on Spiritual Wisdom. 1. The breakup was a spiritual betrayal, not just emotional. They didn't just leave you, they dismissed the sacred. Your ex didn't walk away from a simple relationship. They walked away from a soul contract, and they did it thinking it had no spiritual weight, no karmic consequence. But when someone tries to break a person whose spirit was sent to awaken others, they don't just walk into silence. They walk into a mirror. The kind of mirror that reflects every choice, every deception, and every bit of disrespect back to them. Because what they touched wasn't ordinary, it was divine. They mishandled a rare energy, and the universe has a long memory. Carl Jung once said, "You meet your destiny on the road you take to avoid it." Your ex thought they were avoiding accountability. They thought abandoning you gave them control. But in truth, they collided with their own fate the moment they underestimated your value. They didn't realize that spiritual intelligence speaks quietly but strikes loudly in timing. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was energetic. It wasn't just a breakup, it was a spiritual violation. They mocked your intuition. They overlooked your empathy. They treated your soul like it was replaceable. And now, everything they thought they escaped is finding them again, not as punishment, but as a sacred rebalancing. You weren't just a chapter in their life. You were a turning point they weren't ready for, a sacred mirror they couldn't face. And because they refused to grow, the universe is now using their own patterns to wake them up. That's what happens when someone walks away from someone chosen, from someone who loved with purity, from someone who carried light and gave grace. They weren't rejecting you. They were rejecting transformation. And now, the energy they left behind is reshaping their life, their relationships, and their peace. That's the intelligence of spiritual wisdom. It doesn't need revenge. It only requires alignment. While they wrestle with confusion, you are rising in clarity. While they cycle through chaos, you are rooted in peace. Because what was meant to destroy you has become your divine refinement. Their betrayal was the fire. Your healing was the gold. And every tear you cried became an offering that heaven received. The pain didn't break you, it revealed you. It wasn't abandonment, it was divine redirection. And now, the universe is answering on your behalf, not through drama, but through elevation. They tried to walk away like it was over. But the truth is, your energy was never something they could simply leave behind. They took your light for granted, but now they're learning light doesn't chase. Light expands. And the brighter you shine, the more their shadows grow. That's the consequence of trying to destroy a soul that was sent to teach. You were the lesson. You were the grace. You were the divine appointment they weren't ready to honor. And now, the karma they denied is knocking at their door. Not because you wished it, but because universal order never forgets. If you feel the breakup wasn't just emotional, but a deep spiritual betrayal, comment below, "I choose justice," to affirm your healing and power. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a moment of this journey with spiritual wisdom. 2. Universal justice is now unfolding. The universe has a memory sharper than any human mind, and it never forgets how chosen ones are treated. When someone gossips about you behind your back, when they betray you with a smile, when they launch a spiritual attack cloaked in fake love, they think they've gotten away with it. But energy doesn't lie, and karma doesn't sleep. It watches. It waits. It calibrates with a precision that no justice system on earth could ever match. Those who tried to break you weren't just attacking a person. They were interfering with a spiritual assignment. And now, the universe is moving in ways they can't see, but will surely feel. You were never just an ordinary soul. You were carrying light in places that terrified them. And instead of honoring that light, they tried to extinguish it. But as Carl Jung once said, the brighter the light, the darker the shadow. Their shadows are now being forced to face the very fire they ignited. Their life may look fine on the surface, but underneath, things are falling apart. Sudden anxiety, loss, confusion, blockages. Those aren't coincidences, they're consequences. Spiritual justice rarely arrives loudly. It's silent, it's poetic. It returns to the sender everything they projected onto you multiplied. And that's not vengeance, it's divine rebalancing. You didn't have to curse them. You just had to heal. You didn't have to fight them. You just had to walk away. That decision to detach was the most powerful act of spiritual authority you've ever claimed. Because when you stop reacting, you shift timelines. You move from victimhood into divine neutrality, and in that space, the universe moves on your behalf. What was once hidden is now being exposed, not to shame them, but to awaken them. The pain they sent out was a mirror, and now they're forced to look into it. Spiritual awakening often begins in betrayal. It cracks open the ego, destroys illusions, and forces you to remember who you are without their validation. That's why it hurt so deeply. It wasn't just about them leaving. It was about you being forced to return to your own soul. And now that you've risen, the energy has reversed. You are no longer carrying the burden of their projections. Your aura is clear. Your spirit is strong. Your silence is loud. And the more you rise in truth, the more their lies collapse. This is the hidden order of things, the divine choreography of karma, the precise unfolding of spiritual wisdom. As Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. But now, they are waking up not through insight, but through impact. And you are no longer waiting for closure. You are the closure. You are the evidence that the universe doesn't play favorites, but it does protect the sacred. 3. You were their blessing and their protection. You were not just a chapter in their life. You were the divine force holding their story together. Your presence was their calm in the storm, their unseen shield, their spiritual blessing disguised as a person. When you walked into their life, things aligned, doors opened, confusion cleared, opportunities found them, peace followed them. But they never gave credit to the energy you carried. They thought it was luck. They thought it was them. But it was your spiritual development, your inner alignment, your sacred light that brought order to their chaos. They mishandled a soul that was sent as protection, and in doing so, they rewrote their own fate. When they let you go, or broke you, betrayed you, discarded you, they didn't just lose someone who loved them. They lost the spiritual current that had been quietly keeping their world balanced. Now, what surrounds them is not just bad luck or unfortunate timing. It's the spiritual backlash of dishonoring a connection that was pure, intentional, and heaven-sent. They tried to break what was never meant to be broken. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." And now, their unconscious choices are echoing back in the form of confusion, regret, and emotional chaos. They can't explain why nothing feels right anymore, why peace is foreign, why do their days feel heavier. But you were the calm, and now they are the storm. They are being haunted not by you, but by their own actions towards someone who was sent as a spiritual gift. And the silence you left behind? It speaks louder than anything you could say. You are no longer the protector of their peace. You are the evidence of what divine favor looked like when it lived in human form. The more you grow, the more they decline. That's not karma. That's energetic rebalancing. Because in spirituality, everything is cause and effect, and energy never lies. They are now forced to sit in the exact space they pushed you into. And while they search for replacements, they'll come to realize what they lost was never ordinary. What they mishandled was rare. Your spiritual growth has elevated you out of their reach. You didn't lose them. They lost themselves when they lost you. And now, as the universe continues to restore what's yours, remember this: your light was never meant to be dimmed to make others comfortable. You were their blessing, their protection, their divine mirror. And now, in your absence, they're finally meeting themselves. Comment below, I was their blessing, if you now realize your presence was their protection. Let the universe know you've reclaimed your power. 4. They're haunted by your energy. They are haunted by your energy in ways they cannot explain because you were never just a person to them. You were a presence, a vibration, a spiritual mirror they tried to shatter but couldn't erase. You're in the music they hear randomly on the radio, in the silence that creeps in at night, in the stillness that reminds them of everything they lost. Even in the company of someone new, your energy lingers, louder than words, deeper than touch. The replacements feel like copies of something they never truly understood, because they never fell in love with a face. They were drawn to a frequency they couldn't name. You weren't glitter, you were gold. And now that they've chosen distraction over depth, every moment tastes hollow, every connection feels shallow, and every laugh echoes with a trace of what used to be real. You didn't just walk away. You elevated, you healed, you transmuted the pain into power, but they stayed stuck in the cycle, reliving what they once took for granted. Carl Jung warned, what you resist persists. They resisted facing the depth of your soul, and now it follows them. They tried to forget someone unforgettable. They tried to unfeel someone who was a spiritual event. You weren't merely a chapter they tried to skip over the entire book, and now they're lost without the plot. Your absence didn't create emptiness. It revealed the emptiness that was already there. That's the kind of spiritual justice no court can serve. The universe doesn't punish out of spite, it corrects what was misaligned. And when someone chooses illusion over truth, they pay not in lightning, but in longing. Spiritual wisdom doesn't shout. It whispers through the consequences. It speaks through the quiet ache they can't explain, through the restlessness they can't soothe. They'll scroll, swipe, laugh, and distract themselves, but your memory will return like a ghost that demands reverence. Because energy doesn't lie. You were the light they couldn't dim, the intelligence they couldn't recognize, the soul they mistook for something ordinary. But now they know. The silence they used to weaponize against you has turned into their loudest teacher. Every new face is a reminder that they gave up something sacred for something safe. And safe doesn't satisfy the soul. They were part of your growth, but you were their wake-up call. You were the storm and the calm, the mirror and the lesson. And even though you've let go, your energy still teaches them. That's the power of divine connection. It doesn't fade with distance. It ripens with time. And long after the apology that never came and the closure you gave yourself, they'll still be haunted by what they couldn't hold. not because you cursed them, but because you blessed them and they weren't ready to receive it. If you feel your energy still echoes in places you no longer stand, don't hesitate to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's claim this moment of spiritual justice together. 5. Your pain was a portal to power. They didn't shatter you, they summoned you. The heartbreak wasn't the end of your story. It was the ceremony that initiated your rebirth. You didn't collapse, you cracked open. And from those cracks, your power poured out, not like a whisper, but like thunder, finally remembering its voice. What they meant to destroy became the very fire that purified your identity. They thought they left you broken, but they only left you burning with a new clarity. A spiritual awakening so raw and untamed that it frightened even you at first. You are not the aftermath of abandonment. You are the alchemy of survival. And the pain? That was the portal, not to revenge, but to remembrance. Because what they thought was just another breakup was, in truth, a sacred disruption. You weren't just heartbroken, you were soul awakened. That relationship didn't just hurt, it revealed. It exposed every place you were starving for love outside of yourself. It exposed how you were shrinking to be digestible, silencing your brilliance to be accepted, bending your boundaries just to be chosen. But no more. That silence after the storm, it wasn't emptiness. It was space. Space for a new self to emerge. A self that no longer waits to be seen. A self that no longer apologizes for being rare. Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." That pain made you conscious. And now, you are no longer a character in their story. You are the author of your own. You've entered a new timeline, one where your self-worth is not negotiable, where your love is not something to be exploited, but honored, where your presence is not given away casually, but offered deliberately. They didn't know that walking away from you meant losing access to divine favor. Because you weren't just a partner, you were a portal. You carried healing in your voice, transformation in your touch, prophecy in your presence. And now, without you, they are left chasing illusions, trying to recreate a vibration that only existed in your frequency. That's not ego, that's energy. You don't miss them. You miss the version of yourself that still believed love had to be earned through suffering. But now you know better. You know that peace isn't found in chaos. You know that love isn't proven through pain. You know that your soul was never designed to beg for crumbs. So you stopped reaching. You stopped hoping they'd return with remorse. Because you realized the real justice isn't watching them regret, it's watching yourself evolve. The real victory isn't revenge, it's resurrection. The more you rise, the more the universe opens doors that were previously invisible. The more you heal, the more the past loses its grip on your nervous system. And the more you remember your worth, the less you desire anything that disrupts your peace. Your aura has changed. Your standards have changed. Your energy has become a spiritual boundary. You are no longer accessible in the same way because you've become unavailable to anything that doesn't feel like truth. The heartbreak didn't kill you. It crowned you. And now, you wear that pain like armor silently, powerfully, unapologetically. 6. They were the test, not you. They weren't testing your worth. They were being tested with your presence. You weren't the one under spiritual evaluation. They were given the chance to engage with something rare, something sacred to you, and they failed to honor it. The moment they tried to control what they couldn't understand, mock what they couldn't match, and dim a light they never helped to ignite, they revealed their own spiritual immaturity. Carl Jung once said, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." But instead of confronting their own shadows, they projected them onto you. Rather than rising to meet you in depth, they clung to old cycles of manipulation, jealousy, and fear. They weren't prepared for the gravity of your spirit, for the emotional intelligence, for the calm strength that radiates from someone walking in alignment with their spiritual development. They mistook stillness for weakness, boundaries for rejection, and wisdom for pride, because they had not yet cultivated those qualities within themselves. And so, instead of growth, they chose sabotage. Instead of rising, they tried to pull you under. But the universe keeps detailed records that no one can erase. When someone is given access to a soul in the middle of transformation, someone whose energy carries healing, vision, and purity of purpose, and they respond with disrespect, deception, or emotional warfare, that encounter becomes their spiritual test, not yours. You were the opportunity, they were the lessons, and they failed. You see, the spiritual realm doesn't operate on petty revenge. It works through energetic correction. The very thing they tried to break in you becomes the thing that grows stronger. The love they mishandled becomes your magnetism. The silence they thought was defeat becomes your protection. And the absence they created becomes the space where the universe plants your next blessing. Their consequences may not be visible to you, but they are inevitable. Because spiritual intelligence always calls for balance. While you heal and ascend, they are left to face the karmic mirror, the one they refused to look into when you offered them the truth. They weren't just unready to love you. They were unready to face themselves. And you, by staying soft, by staying true, by choosing growth over bitterness, passed your own hidden test. You didn't just survive the betrayal. You transmuted it into wisdom. And that's what sets you apart. You no longer chase closure because your peace is louder. You no longer seek apologies because your soul understands that justice is spiritual. In this life, people often don't recognize the sacred until it's gone. But that's not your burden. You were never the one being measured. You were the measurement. And the universe saw everything. 7. Spiritual warfare was at play. They thought it was just a breakup. But what really happened was a spiritual ambush disguised as love. This wasn't merely emotional damage, it was a calculated infiltration of your light by darker forces using your ex as their vessel. They aligned with gossip, jealousy, and shadowed intent. Behind their smile was an energy hungry to dim what it could never possess. Carl Jung once said, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." But your ex couldn't do that, so they projected their darkness onto you, trying to make you doubt your worth, your power, your divine nature. They didn't just walk away. They tried to break something sacred inside you. But what they didn't know is that you were never ordinary. You were the lesson. You were the karma. You were the mirror of their own unconscious betrayal. While they partnered with chaos, you held on to spiritual intelligence. And while they sought validation through control, you found clarity through pain. The universe saw everything they tried to hide. Every time they mocked your light, disrespected your boundaries, or fed poison into your self-esteem, it was recorded. Not for revenge, but for divine rebalancing. Because when someone wrongs a soul chosen by spirit, it's never just personal, it becomes cosmic. They mistook your kindness for weakness, your silence for ignorance, your forgiveness for foolishness. But they weren't playing with your heart, they were playing with sacred fire. And now, that fire has turned. The same flame they tried to ignite under your life is now burning under their conscience. The same silence they once dismissed is now echoing in their sleepless nights. Spiritual awakening doesn't just mean you rise, it means the truth rises with you. Their punishment is not your revenge, it's your distance, your peace, your glow that they can no longer reach. You didn't fight back with words you elevated in silence. You didn't chase closure, you became it. Your intelligence, your spiritual wisdom, your alignment with higher truth is now the evidence of your power. The universe is delivering justice not by exposing them to the world, but by unveiling you to yourself. And now, everything they tried to destroy is exactly what makes you untouchable. They triggered a transformation that was never meant for them to understand, it was meant for you to embody. Because in the end, it wasn't just about heartbreak, it was about rebirth. And your rebirth is the most powerful form of justice they'll never be able to undo. 8. The silence was never peaceful. It was guilt. They didn't ghost you because they were healed. They ghosted you because they couldn't face the mirror you unknowingly held up to their soul. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own souls." And that's the truth they ran from. You were never just a relationship to them. You were a confrontation with their own shadows. You didn't just love them. You exposed everything they tried to bury. Your kindness, your depth, your emotional intelligence, all of it reminded them of the parts of themselves they rejected. So they didn't leave in peace. They left in panic. And the silence they wrapped themselves in, that wasn't healing. It was avoidance, laced with guilt. It was the spiritual weight of unspoken apologies and denied accountability. The deafening noise of regret they thought they could escape by staying quiet. But silence has a memory. And now, it's louder than ever. Every moment they try to move on, the weight of what they did creeps in. They pretend to be unaffected, but their conscience whispers the truth when the world gets quiet. What they thought they abandoned is still with them, not as a memory, but as a karmic echo of what they once touched but didn't value. You are not just a body with emotions. You are a spiritual event, a turning point they failed to honor. They didn't just leave you. They left the version of themselves they could have become if they had stayed, healed, and evolved. And that's a kind of loss that doesn't go away. This isn't just heartbreak. This is spiritual justice unfolding. The universe doesn't rush, but it never forgets. They dismissed you, underestimated you, maybe even humiliated you, but they had no idea they were playing with divine energy. Your energy was sacred, and sacred things don't disappear. They haunt. They echo. They rise again. What they thought was weakness in you was actually your grace. What they mocked as too emotional was your deep intelligence, the kind of spiritual wisdom that reveals itself only to the brave, and they weren't ready. But now, every silence they tried to use as distance has become a bridge, back to the very thing they thought they could escape, the truth. So when you feel that silence, don't confuse it for emptiness. It's the sound of the universe recalibrating, balancing scales they tipped. They weren't strong enough to face your love, your purity, your power. And now they're learning what Carl Jung warned us. Whatever is rejected from the self appears in the world as an event. You were that event, and now you are the consequence. Because spiritual awakening often begins when someone tries to break us, and instead of shattering, we shine. 9. Your energy was divine and unmatched. You were never ordinary. You were the original design, the sacred blueprint that could not be copied, replaced, or reduced. You walked into their life as a blessing, wrapped in divine energy they couldn't comprehend, let alone handle. You radiated something pure, powerful, and deeply spiritual, an energy forged through pain, healing, and awakening. But instead of honoring it, they mocked it, dismissed it, even tried to distort it. They tried to break what was sent to bless them. And now, that energy they disrespected is echoing back into their life, not as punishment, but as reflection. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." You were their mirror, the one who unconsciously showed them the parts of themselves they refused to face: the emotional immaturity, the fear of depth, the need for control masked as charm. Your presence triggered a spiritual confrontation within them, and they ran, not from you, but from the truth you represented. You see, you were never chaotic. They were simply not ready for peace. You were never too much. They were just too empty. While you offered love, presence, and emotional safety, they chose confusion, ego, and performance. And now, in your absence, they finally feel the spiritual weight of your presence. What they once called clingy or too intense, they now crave in silence. What they called too emotional was actually your capacity for deep connection. They didn't just lose you, they lost the energy that was elevating their soul without them even realizing it. That's what happens when you betray a sacred bond. The void doesn't just stay, it expands. And in that emptiness, they are forced to remember you, not just as someone they used to know, but as someone who awakened something in them they can never unfeel. Spirituality and spiritual development are not always gentle. Sometimes they look like your departure becomes their deepest lesson. You never needed revenge because your healing became the justice. While they remain stuck, chasing fleeting validation, you rise quietly, steadily, fully. Your glow is no longer something they can touch, only something they can miss. And that is the real reckoning, realizing too late that the person they tried to break was the person sent to help them heal. You were not a phase, you were a mirror, a message, a moment of divine opportunity. And because they chose to ignore that, the universe responded not with anger, but with balance. Your growth became their grief. Your silence became their spiritual consequence. And your peace, now, is louder than any apology they'll never say. Keep going. The rarest energies are always tested first, but they are also the ones most protected by the universe. 10. You've evolved beyond their reach. You no longer shrink yourself just to fit inside someone else's comfort zone. You've stopped begging to be seen, stopped negotiating your worth, stopped allowing your light to be dimmed in exchange for temporary affection. What once wounded you has now become your initiation into power. They thought they could break you, but they didn't realize you were made of something that doesn't fracture, it transforms. Carl Jung said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And that's what you did. You faced your darkness, met your pain without flinching, and rose not with vengeance, but with vision. While they're still performing old patterns, you've become the truth they can't escape and the silence they can't ignore. You've spiritually and energetically leveled up. There's no turning back. The version of you that tolerated disrespect no longer exists. They are now left with the echo of what they thought was ordinary, but it was never ordinary. It was divine. You were the blessing they mishandled, the sacred mirror they shattered, the soul contract they sabotaged. And now, what remains for them is imitation, mimicry, a desperate attempt to recreate your essence with people who only reflect back their wounds. But you're no longer repeating cycles. You've exited the loop entirely. You've become calm after the chaos, the intelligence behind the distance, the spiritual wisdom that walks away not in bitterness, but in reverence for self. They can feel the shift. You don't argue anymore. You don't explain. Your absence has become your most powerful language. Your healing became your closure. You no longer live to be understood by those committed to misunderstanding you. You no longer need the noise to feel alive. You found divinity in your own presence. They mistook your love for weakness, your silence for surrender, but it was a recalibration. You are now emotionally sovereign. You protect your peace like a sacred altar. You've become someone who chooses alignment over attention, solitude over toxicity, and truth over temporary validation. They are haunted, not just by what they did, but by who you've become. Your aura no longer welcomes chaos. Your boundaries are no longer negotiable. You are no longer entertaining people who once applauded your wounds and vanished at your growth. They tried to diminish what they couldn't dominate, but now they witness you embody what they can no longer access. That is justice. You didn't get revenge, you got revelation. You didn't retaliate, you realigned. You didn't fall apart, you remembered who you were. You've evolved beyond their reach. And now, the universe echoes back your clarity with blessings, protection, and divine order. Because in the end, the one who heals becomes the one who holds the power. And the one who tried to destroy you must live with the memory of the version of you they'll never know again. And remember, what was meant to destroy you became the very fire that awakened your power. The universe doesn't forget, and neither should you. If this message spoke to something deep within you, don't keep it to yourself. Like, share, and subscribe to Spiritual Wisdom to stay connected with insights that nourish your soul. And be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a moment of truth, healing, and divine justice. Your story isn't over. It's just getting started.